President Trump and his team making one final push to get the president's tax bill across the finish line by next week. Michael Faulkender is the deputy Treasury Secretary. And, Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you. Watching from where we are, it just seems like there's, so many. We're going to have Rand Paul on, for example. There's so many different constituencies, single-person constituencies on both. We just had Michael Faulkender on as well. Are you confident that when push comes to shove, there's some type of path to passage?
Absolutely, Joe. So the president has been engaged. The secretary is highly engaged in this. Every effort is being made by the administration to see how we can thread that needle to serve all of the different needs of members of Congress for what their constituents need in this bill. But ultimately, what brings us all together is the recognition that we cannot have a $4.5 trillion tax increase at the end of this year. We do need to provide tax certainty to the American people. We do need to provide those pro-growth elements that are in this bill. For instance, accelerated depreciation, R&D tax credits, making sure that new factories get immediate expensing, as well as making sure that many of the president's pro-labor provisions, like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, are enacted. And so ultimately, while there's some negotiations around the edges on some individual issues, we are seeing the members come together to make sure that the Senate is going to be able to pass this bill this weekend. We'll move it over to the House and get it to the president's desk extremely quickly.
We've had Senator Ron Johnson on. He always leaves, like, at the very end. He's I'm not saying I'm not going to vote. It always sounds like it could be a yes. We have Senator Rand Paul on later in the show, in this hour. And I even, in reading the notes from him, he says, I'm not saying I'm not convincible and that I'm an absolute no. I don't know what he's going to say when we have him on. But everybody, I guess, postures. Is it a kabuki dance? What if Michael Faulkender, what if there's zero increase in the SALT cap? Do you think that you'll have the Republicans support the Senate version?
I think that we will find in the Senate and the House continue working together. Senator Thune and a number of senators are working with House members, including Mike Lawler, to identify what is the path that we can get to a compromise that satisfies both the House and the Senate on the SALT cap. We are confident that we will get a compromise and that the SALT cap issue will not hold up this bill. We are continuing to work with members of all parts of the Republican Party in the House and the Senate to find the path on spending reforms. There is united consensus that we need to get a lot of the waste and fraud out of our spending. And so as we work with the parliamentarian to find where we can cut spending, where we can reform programs, where we can make sure that we get the budget on a path to stronger fiscal position, we are working with all members of both parts of the House and the Senate to make sure that we find those compromises. But we remain confident that the negotiations are happening in very good faith. People are recognizing the time frame under which the president would like to operate on this, and we are getting good language on all of these outstanding issues. We are still looking at bringing that to the Senate floor on Thursday.
I mean, it's kind of fascinating to watch and confusing, but so the bird bath process with the parliamentarian, can you update us on? There's some things that I think didn't pass muster. What has been decided in the last couple of days, in your view?
Yeah, so we continue to get guidance on the parliamentarian as to which things, as they were initially constructed, whether or not they require revisions to them. So we continue to work. We at Treasury continue to provide technical assistance to the various Senate committees that are working through the parliamentarian to incorporate that guidance. We again continue to anticipate that there will be some revisions. We know that there will be an amendment to the language that was already put out in order to satisfy the conditions that the parliamentarian is imposing as part of that evaluation of their compliance with Senate rules. But we continue to work together to find language that will work both to meet the objectives of the president, but that also satisfy the parliamentary requirements of the Senate procedure.
The president is, I don't know what's tougher, talking to some of these NATO countries into ponying up more than 1.5%, or he's going to have to come back immediately and start making calls, I think, to different members. Do you think that is there a 0% chance that a Democrat in the House let's say in an area, an area where President Trump won, and an area where, taxes on tips, no taxes would be popular, or on overtime. Is there a 0% chance a Democrat would vote for this?
So, Joe, let me first correct you by saying the president will continue to make calls even while he's at NATO.
Even while he's over there.
Air Force One has calls that will make calls all over the world, and so we're confident that the president will continue to chime in as his guidance and encouragement is needed.
When he gets done talking to Netanyahu, exactly.
Yes.
Wow.
This president's fully capable of multitasking and having conversations with different parties all at the same time. Now, when it comes to Democrat votes, we continue to argue that this bill should have bipartisan support. As you mentioned, there are a number of provisions. I mean, do we really want a $4.5 trillion tax increase at the end of this year? Shouldn't it be the case that workers who provide good service are able to keep more of the tipped income that they generate? Shouldn't we make sure that we remove some of the disincentives to workers in their 60s staying in their workforce and able to reduce the taxes that are paid on their Social Security benefits? So we think that there are a lot of provisions in this that normally would capture Democrat votes, and we invite Democrat members of both the House and the Senate to take a hard look at a lot of these pro-American components that are in the bill. And if they are looking for what would benefit their individual districts, there are a lot of things that their districts would benefit from that are going to be in this bill.
Michael, we just had Kathy Wild on, who runs the New York City Partnership, represents a lot of CEOs here and the businesses in New York City. And she was talking actually about the House bill and how it could impact partnerships, S-corps, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and others in terms of deductions. Where's the White House stand on that?
Yeah, so again, we keep working with both the House and the Senate. These are all different provisions of the SALT cap. So part of this is how much are individuals going to be able to deduct, and then part of it also is the pass-through piece that you're talking about. Because there are a number of states put in provisions whereby they can claim it at the partnership level or at the larger company level, and then it doesn't go through and get limited at the individual level. We continue to work with both the House and the Senate to find compromise language that will address these issues of pass-throughs. It's a fluid conversation because it's part of that broader SALT deduction conversation.
Will the Senate bill still be have more reforms of Medicaid than the House bill, and is that going to be okay? Instead of talking about Democrats, will that be okay with some of the more moderate senators, Susan Collins, for example? How's that going to work? Are there discussions ongoing there?
The discussions are indeed ongoing. In fact, my boss is having breakfast with Senator Collins right now. We continue to talk with members of all of the Senate members that are participating in this bill in order to find that compromise language. We anticipate, though, and as the president has said, it continues to be a strong priority that we eliminate waste and abuse in our government programs, including in Medicaid. And so we keep pushing for as much reductions in that waste and abuse that we can get through the Congress.